talking with somebody new.
Good evening. Welcome to our Fairbanks Northborough School District's regular school board meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, and we are starting at 6 o'clock. The school board would like to take this moment to respectfully acknowledge we're residing on the traditional land of the Dene people. Our mission is to provide an excellent, equitable education and a safe, supportive environment so all students will succeed and contribute to a diverse and changing society. Ms. Richardson, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Colonel Alvarado is excused. Colonel Surrey is expected. Mr. Dorn,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett,
Here.
Mrs. Hardy,
Here.
Mrs. Matheson is excused. Miss Marat,
Here.
I'm here.
I'm sorry, Miss Matheson is on Zoom, excuse me. Miss Marati's here, Mrs. Sanderson, it's Mrs. Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Sanderson.
Here.
Thank you, the board has a quorum.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the ESP of the month. And Natalie Savasco, ADC Records Manager, will be recognized as the ESP of the month for February 2023. Erin Poland, Executive Assistant to the Chief School Administrator, will conduct the presentation. I will stay seated and we will shake hands at the end.
Thank you, President Sanderson. Good evening. I would like to introduce you to Natalie Savasco. Dun-dun-dun. She is our ESP for February 2023. Natalie started with the district in 1999 in nutrition services and is currently our one and only student records manager for past and current district students. Most recently, Natalie has taken her personal family story and using it to save potential lives in Fairbanks and in our schools. And I wanted to introduce Natalie. Thank you, everybody. I didn't want to get emotional, but I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for the recognition of my dedicated service to the district. I have lived in Fairbanks for 44 years, and I've enjoyed over 23 years working for the district. I'm so blessed to have met so many wonderful and hardworking staff along the way. Many I get to call my friends. In addition to being the student records manager, I also am an advocate for the fight against addiction and trying to bring awareness to the problem. I want to talk about it and let people know that there should be no shame around this subject. My daughter is a recovering opioid addict that has battled this for 10 years. She's almost 3 years sober and carrying our first grandchild. It has been a rough 10 years for her and for our entire family, but through the hard times, it has made me a better person. And I have made a personal journey of trying to help the community and bring awareness to this. Thank you. I joined the fight with Project Hope Alaska last year. After applying and training, I was accepted as a distributor for free emergency opioid overdose kits. I was also fortunate enough for the district to allow me to get these kits into our schools. Last week, I delivered my last 10 kits, which will now be enough to have one in each of our schools. In addition to our schools, I have placed one at Monroe Catholic School, The Door, and Turning Point Counseling. That's totaling 38 kits in our community, and I have given out more than 100 rescue kits. My next mission is to bring more education to our youth about addiction and the fentanyl crisis. Thousands and thousands are losing their lives as we are seeing the largest influx of fentanyl into the United States than ever before. In 2019, the state of Alaska did their Alaska Youth Risk Behavior Survey for all high schools in Alaska. Our district alone had 45% of our students participate. 17.6 said they had taken medications that weren't prescribed to them, like Vicodin, Xanax, Percocet, OxyContin. This is alarming, and this survey was pre-pandemic. I have no doubt that that percentage has risen given the mental health problems post-COVID. Our youth aren't out to buy fentanyl. They're out to buy party drugs, ecstasy, Xanax, pills, cocaine, not realizing these pills are laced or cut with fentanyl. It just takes one time, less than a grain of salt, to kill a person. Nationally, 42% of the street pills tested had a fatal dose of fentanyl. Awareness is crucial, and we need to be talking about it. Again, thank you for the recognition and allowing me to have a voice, and hopefully with all of us working together, we can make a difference. I was going to pass out kits. Karen, you already got one. To everybody.
Thank you again, Natalie. Next item on our is the adoption of the agenda. We'll do a vote by consensus. Are there any objections to approving the agenda?
Move to adopt the agenda with consent items with the deletion of agenda item G1, policy 991, controversial issues, second reading, and the addition of agenda item H1, policy 991, controversial issues, first reading.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Richardson, would you please call for the vote?
Ms. Smith?
I'm sorry. Hold just a second, please.
we clarify, is this a vote for the amendment? Not,
It's the full, I included everything in the one motion. So it's one motion, one main motion.
You want to clarify it again?
thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Richardson.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Doran,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett,
Yes.
Mrs. Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Hardy,
Yes.
Miss Marati,
Yes.
Mrs. Sanderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Next is our public comments. Public comments on records and non-agenda items are limited to 2 minutes per person for a maximum of 1 hour. People who have signed up in advance through the school board office to testify in person or by Zoom will be called upon first. If time remains, anyone else who is in the person will be invited to testify until the 1 hour time limit has been reached. A person testifying shall state their full name, spelling their last name, and their city of residence for the record. Board members may ask questions for clarification. Although there is time at the end of each meeting for school board and chief school administrator comments, some concerns may not be able to be addressed immediately, as additional information may need to be gathered. Public comments, inputs, ideas, and suggestions are welcome on salary, benefits, and any other contractual item regarding the Education Support Staff Association, ESSA, and the Fairbanks Education Association, FEA, negotiations. First one on our sign-up sheet is Craig Kine. Welcome, Mr. Kine. Please state your name, spell your last and residence.
Certainly. My name is Craig Kind, K-I-N-D, and I reside in Esther. Good evening. I am a teacher at Career Education Center, and I'm here this evening to once again request an opportunity for CEC and SMART staff to share their concerns about the proposed redesign of our programs. At previous work sessions, board members have made several specific requests for information, as well as asked to have CEC and SMART staff at the table to discuss. I don't wish to take up much of your time this evening, as a work session or a special meeting specifically on the budget is a more appropriate venue for sharing our input. However, as of today, we have neither been scheduled as members of the staff to be part of a district presentation nor formally invited by the board to present. I believe that board members and the public would benefit from a broader understanding of what we do at CEC and SMART, how we do what we do in our two very different programs, and a better understanding of the full range of students we support throughout the school. Throughout the school district. While our programs may be small, they serve a diverse group of at-risk students, and the impacts of our programs are felt across the district. The proposed redesign before you in the budget would radically change both programs, and the impacts would affect some of our most vulnerable students in our district. As you grapple with very difficult budget decisions, we ask for the opportunity to share our perspective on how to best serve at-risk students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kine. Are there any clarification questions for Mr. Kine? Thank you, sir. Next, we have Michelle Harmlick, and if I mispronounce your name, I'm sorry. If you're here, you can come up and testify. Okay. All right, next is Natalie. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Go
Yes.
ahead and spell your last name and your place of residence. Thank you.
Michelle Harlemert, Harlamert, and I'm currently in Anchorage, Alaska. I would like to take you through what's happened to me as an employee since April. In April, May, we were informed that secondary education e-learning was being cut except for PE, health, and social studies. We asked if there was a possibility that PE and health would be cut or if we were safe. We were told our positions were safe. I applied for 2 summer positions with the district. I was issued contracts for both positions and signed contracts for both positions. When I showed up to work for my first job in June, I was instructed by my supervisors to clock in and out for times and dates that weren't matching my contract. When I let them know that that was what was occurring, I was told by HR, or I was issued a new contract and was told to sign the new contract or not work. I didn't want to put my July contract in jeopardy, so I signed the new contract for lesser pay and continued to fulfill my obligation. When I showed up to the July contract, I was again instructed by my supervisor to clock in and out. That did not meet my contract, and I notified that supervisor that that's not what my contract said. She looked at my contract and agreed and figured out a way to make it happen. About a week before I was to return to the school year, I received a call notifying me that my position had been cut and that I was to show up to a middle school for a position. A day before I was to show up, I received another phone call letting me know that I was to show up at a different school for the school year. I retired in December. The district has not given the correct paperwork to the state for me to start drawing my retirement yet. I think maybe though, that might have gotten fixed today. I'm still waiting to hear for sure. That's an awful lot for a single income family to go through. My June contract, when they changed it, delayed my pay and I didn't receive my first paycheck there on time either. That's an awful lot of mistakes and an awful lot of, I'm just wondering how many other employees aren't noticing these things. And it's put my family in a lot of hardship.
Ms. Harmon, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Natalie P-E-C-I-C. Pisick? Pisick. Would you please come forward, Natalie? Okay. Natalie is not with us, but if we could have Danielle Logan come to the podium and spell your last name and state your place of residence.
Good evening. My name is Danielle Logan, Logan, and I reside in Fairbanks. Good evening, President Sanderson and members of the board. As we head into budget season, I would like to thank those who have testified in the House Education and Senate hearings. These hearings on the need to increase the base student allocation in statute and critical for every district across the state to give our students the education they deserve. In a work session 2 weeks ago, we were told an additional $3.4 million was added for the district in the mayor's proposed budget. This funding increase would just keep our budget flat due to the state's education formula calculations. Ms. Matheson asked why we weren't asking for more. I would like to thank Ms. Matheson for that question. And she stated, and as most of us know, you don't get what you don't ask for. The response was that we wanted to be good neighbors and not raise taxes. As a taxpayer, I don't want our property taxes to go higher. But as a taxpayer, I also want a strong, productive, and effective school district that we can be proud of. Today, I'm asking for a bigger piece of the pie for our students. Our borough needs a strong foot forward to attract new families, businesses, and military families, and as well fund district in the first steps and in the right direction. I'm urging you all to continue advocating in Juneau and lobbying the Borough Assembly for increased funding beyond the $3.4 million. Make sure your lobbyist is in Juneau working those halls and on the legislative priorities and reporting back. Support our efforts to have parents reach out to Juneau and support the BSA increase. Make sure that video you made to tell parents and students about how to lobby is well circulated. Write those op-eds, and as our community education leaders, talk to our assembly members. We all look up to you as leaders, and our community will follow your lead. Our district is at a crossroads today, and without that funding increase to support our students, our entire town will suffer. As Fairbanks goes, so goes our state.
Thank you, Ms. Logan, for your testimony. Next, we have Sandy Ryan.
Good evening, all. My name is Sandy Ryan, R-Y-A-N, and I have taught mathematics and computer science for nearly 30 years in this great town. I currently serve as the FEA president, and I reside in Fairbanks. First, let me take a moment to thank all of you, each and every one of you, for all your work and your time and your hours that you spent finding a superintendent for our district. You took the challenge and you ran with it. You got a group of educators that were ready to work for Fairbanks. You narrowed it down to finalists, and you spent over 6 hours in deliberations. I appreciate your time, and I'm glad that we are now moving forward. Secondly, I'd like to tell you about my last couple of trips to Juneau. I was able to go both as an advocate for education and another time with the Chamber of Commerce. It's always interesting to attend Juneau, and you never know what to expect. I will say it was the most unusual experience I've had in a month of Sundays, as my grandmother would have said. It is an atmosphere of wanting to roll their sleeves up and get to work. Doors were not closed when I talked about education, and other things were not put in the way as blockers. I cannot encourage you enough to continue the advocacy. It's well worth it, and I feel like the legislature knows it's time. It's time to make a difference. However, just as my friend just said, it's also time to talk to the borough. It's time for us to get together as a team and to work as a team. To say, thank you for the work you've done, thank you for what you're doing, but our kids deserve more. We deserve to do the absolute best for our kids, and part of that means that we're going to need to put some money in the pie. So I appreciate your time, and once again, thank you for your time and efforts.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan, for your testimony, and thank you for your QR code. Straight to Juneau. Do we have anyone else signed up for testimony?
There was a sign-up sheet that I signed.
That was for reports and non-agenda items, not now. That's our reports and non-agenda items?
It was regarding school budget cuts. Yeah.
Go ahead, come forward and state your name, spell your last name, and where you reside.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Cogan, C-O-G-E-N. I live in Fairbanks and I work as the library assistant at West Valley High School. I'm here to ask that you please not cut the secondary library assistants from the school district's budget. NAEP testing has already shown that our kids are behind in reading. Alaska is among the last in the nation. If our district truly stands behind the Alaska Reads Act and wants to support literacy, cutting staff and funding for the library makes absolutely no sense. We need fully functioning libraries to support our students. My job is not simply sitting all day checking books in and out. In the West Valley Library, we're on our feet all day, every day. We provide so many supportive services to our staff and students, including the management of thousands of textbooks and the distribution and support of hundreds of Chromebooks. One librarian could not do it all. My presence means keeping the library open when the head librarian needs to step out to assist others around the school, when she's at lunch, when her workday ends before mine. Cutting my position would mean literally shutting the library doors and severely limiting access for staff and students. And on top of everything else I do, my school has also come to rely on me for emergency subbing in the library. During the last pay period, I subbed in the library 9 out of 10 school days. And when I sub, it saves the district hundreds and over time, thousands of dollars. Yes, I am here because I'd like to save my job, which I love, but the loss of my position would also leave me feeling very sad for the whole school, for the staff, and most especially for the students. The West Valley Library serves hundreds of people each and every day. It's simply not possible for a single person to keep the library open and fully functioning. If I'm gone, the school will suffer. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Michelle Thomas.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Thomas, Thomas, and I reside in North Pole. and I want to discuss the importance of all library assistants in the secondary schools and what would happen if my job or any of our jobs were eliminated from the library team. And I work at North Pole Middle School Library. At the beginning of every school year, the library team, which I am a part of, is responsible for issuing Chromebooks to students as quickly as possible to prevent the loss of classroom time needed by teachers. The library team must also ensure that every student has parent permission in PowerSchool to have a Chromebook, and who has which Chromebook and who has which Chromebook is accounted for. This process also involves making sure every Chromebook has a corresponding protective case and charger. The library team distributed 264 Chromebooks between the first day of school and September 7th. Since then, due to the fluctuating enrollment numbers of students, and in order to provide replacements for malfunctioning Chromebooks, we checked out another 269. The library team also submitted 253 Chromebook work orders to the technology department, and we are responsible for troubleshooting Chromebook problems every single day. The library team supported the technology department's swapping of outdated Chromebooks for new ones, creating a seamless process in one day of exchanging over 100 Chromebooks. This entire process was done between the librarian, the library assistant, and coordination of teachers. Other important tasks that the library team has done is checked out 5,000. I'm so sorry. I have so many different things I want to discuss, but I will have to continue at another time. Thank you so much for the time.
Hold on, Ms. Thomas. Ms. Moretti, you have a clarifying question for her?
Ms. Thomas, could you send the rest of your testimony via email to the school board email so that we can hear the rest of your ideas?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you.
Oh, Ms. Thomas, Ms. Smith has a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, I remember you from middle school. You were the library assistant when I was in 8th grade at North Pole Middle
my.
School, and I really appreciated you working. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your kindness. Very kind thought. Thank you.
And I'm not sure the last name, Dickerson? Joel, is it? It's the last person to sign up on our sheet tonight. It looks like Joel Dicker. Okay. Anyone else that would like to come forward to testify? Seeing none at this time, we will close our public testimony. Thank you. And it doesn't look like we have a Borough Assembly report tonight, is that correct? So we'll move on. And the president's report is just brief. Next month, hopefully I'll have it submitted in the board docs. The Black History Month contest is underway. And I believe the time was extended. I could be wrong. It was extended so the students could participate in that and enjoy it. We also, the superintendent selection has been finalized, and we selected our new superintendent, Luke Minart. And the ad hoc committee is meeting this month to finalize the superintendent's contract. I'm looking forward to starting work with him to help our students. Next on our agenda is the chief administrator's report.
Thank you, President Sanderson. I'd like to begin my report with a little update of our trip to Juneau. Mr. DeGraw, myself, and our lobbyist, John Ringstead, were in Juneau March 9th and 10th, and we were able to meet with 14 different legislators, both from our local delegation and from around the state, and we were able to share with them the Fairbanks North Starborough School District story, some of the great things that we're doing here in our district, and the fact that it will be difficult to continue to do some of those great things moving forward. We had great conversations, and we're able to communicate the reality of unpredictable and unsustainable lack of funds would mean for us. So I felt like that was a really positive opportunity that we had to meet with different legislators. Next, I would like to give a quick update and report on North Star College enrollment, lottery enrollment. We had 200 applicants. The lottery application time closed February 17th, and at that point we had 200 applicants. That will start through the process. So of those 200, they will fill the 180 seats available. So that process is underway right now. We're really excited about that kind of interest in North Star College. And then to our some of the activities that are happening around the district. Last night, I had the privilege to go and be a judge at the History Day, Fairbanks History Day competition, where students have submitted different entries, and that's going on right now. The judging is continuing, and a ceremony on Friday at noon will be happening at Pioneer Park. So you can go in and be a part of that if you'd like. September 25th, Saturday, will be the Interior Spelling Bee at West Valley High School, another exciting academic event for the students, not only in Fairbanks, but for the interior as well. As part of our family engagement goal, today and tomorrow is parent-teacher conferences, an opportunity for parents and teachers to get together and talk and have some interaction about their students and their performance in school. And then finally, I would like to address one of our other strategic goals, and that's community partnerships. Fairbanks, North Starborough School District, is hosting the Department of Defense and Educational Activity, or DODEA, regional meeting. This is an event that will bring 50 visitors from districts and states in the Northwest and Southwest regions of the country. All the participating districts are recipients of a DODEA grant, and the attending this meeting, they'll get an opportunity to talk about managing the grants and collaborate together across districts and find ways that we can implement our grants better, and also moving forward with writing upcoming grant opportunities. This is a really great opportunity for us to showcase our community and for us to spend time with other districts that are doing like work around the country. So we were really excited to be able to host that activity. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Moline. Next on our agenda is action items, is unfinished business. Do we have any? Okay. Next on our agenda is information and reports, Executive Director of Teaching. Okay. New business action item. Go. Hold on, let me grab it, get my place. So the action item unfinished business is the policy 991 controversial issue. And it says second reading, but it's actually the first reading. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve first reading, public hearing, and advancement to a vote of policy 991 controversial issues.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this action item? Seeing none. Is there any board discussion on this action item?
You want to go to administration?
Yes. So we'll move to the administration to present this item to us. The Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Chad Bean, along with, will provide a presentation. That's a totally different issue. Mr. Bean.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to put some information up on the screen. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. This is officially the first reading of this. We'll look at the history of this as we go through. So the purpose of this revision is to, well, if we relate this to our mission statement, to provide an excellent, equitable education and safe, supportive environment so all students will succeed. The idea that we would look at issues that are controversial is something that is important, and if we're going to do it the correct way and make sure that our students feel safe and supported, that we need some guidelines for that. Other purposes, so students can learn about topics that are relevant to their lives, deepen their understanding of complex issues, and explore diverse perspectives. And we want to have this open, constructive dialogue, which is a hallmark of lifelong learning and a cornerstone of democracy. We need to be able to have conversations about difficult things, and learning how to do that in school, I think, should be one of our skill sets that we can work on. Another purpose is to provide this safe space for students to have this academic dialogue. We want students to be able to make an argument. So this is not about the fact that we want to teach controversial issues. That is not that at all. It is the idea that there are issues out there and kids learn how to make an argument with supporting details. And controversial issues just happens to be one of those things. We can't shy away from everything. There are things that the kids need to learn how to step into and make a good argument and be civil at the same time. This is a protection for all of us. It is a protection for the students, it is a protection for the teachers, and for the district. Clear guidance and expectations will protect everybody. The history of this revision is that we started way back in September of 2021, and a previous draft was shared with teachers, and we got a lot of feedback, 123 responses for that. Then the next month, we had a new draft that was written with that feedback in mind. December 1st, the board policy committee discussed that. There were some revisions made to that policy. February 23rd, the board policy committee voted and they approved it at that point. Last April, I presented that policy to the board, and at that point, the board wanted to see what the AR would look like that would provide the guidance for this policy. That AR has been attached. You all have had that. Here's the current policy. It's very short, succinct. There's not much detail to it. This is the proposed version. You all have seen that before. And as I said before, last time we met about this, you all were interested in seeing the AR, and that AR has been provided to you all in the packet. I'm happy to take questions.
Mr. Dorn, you have a question for Mr. Bean?
Just a clarification, and maybe for the public, the difference between first and second reading, that just to recap, that back in April of last year, the board voted down the first reading. And so that's why this is coming back as a first reading this year. The other thing that I wanted to just clarify, at the time I was chair of the board policy committee, and they voted unanimously to move the policy forward. They did have several suggestions which were reflected in board discussions last April. And because they had talked about it at multiple meetings and felt it was time to move forward with their input for consideration. So just that understanding of why it's back here for first reading, not second. So there was a little bit of change in our agenda, just to clarify that.
Mrs. Smith?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the work that went into this and the detail in the AR. I know that your team worked really hard on it, and that the purpose of the policy is, just like you said, to protect teachers, students, and the district. And I really feel that the policy, along with the AR, are going to do that. So I definitely support this policy change. And I hope that the public takes the time to really read the AR that is attached to our documents, because we did get some testimony that, you know, this wasn't, that this was going to be restricting what teachers could teach. And that's really not the case. It's just giving teachers a real safe guardrails and guidelines. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ms. Roddy?
We received some great feedback from West Valley's Global Studies Department, and I followed up with Ms. Galloway from that department to better understand the feedback that we received. And I want to be clear, Ms. Galloway is strongly against teachers trying to influence students about what to think. She understands and supports the spirit of this policy, but believes that the statute language from the Code of Ethics of the education profession is more nuanced and targeted and already exists. It was also brought to the board's attention that words like gather, intelligent, with others, and guidance are up for interpretation. And I liked what Mr. Beam said about being clear and that being imperative. And so it would suggest that they be replaced with clearer words such as research, bias, informed, and to practice effective citizenship. I also fear that the addition of the words free from partisanship could result in experiences such as students not learning about the atrocities of slavery, or students learning equivalencies between Holocaust academia and Holocaust denial. I'm confident that none of us want anything like this to happen, but by requiring educators to not favor one side of some historical events ever may result in this type of instruction or the avoidance of providing instruction on some topics. Finally, according to our district's own webpage on U.S. government and civics curriculum, students will learn about diverse stances within issues, events, groups, people, requiring them to hear partisan opinions. Partisanship is literally required by our own standard. Therefore, I move to amend the motion to approve first reading, public hearing, and advancement to second reading of Policy 911 controversial issues with the revised amendments provided to us by West Valley Global Studies Department that I can forward to administration at the request of the board president.
Second?
Do I have a second?
Second.
This has been seconded by Ms. Hardy, and if you could forward that, Ms. Moratti, appreciate it.
Excuse me. Ms. Matheson has a question on Zoom.
Ms. Matheson?
Thank you. So after reading everything, I'm still unclear with, controversies sometimes they get heated, and with what I read, I'm still unclear on how we will be ensuring that our students, our teachers in our district are safe. I mean, it's controversial. It's it's going to get heated. So how are we maintaining? I'm still unclear and I need a little more clarification on that.
So I would say that in this case, and you're right, it's possible that sometimes during during conversation of controversial things could get heated. I think that's the purpose of these guidelines, to help the teachers see, here's how we can handle these conversations. We would certainly want to have PD on that type of thing also. So for us to say, let me back up. I believe what was just said is true, but I think that that's the purpose of having these guidelines, to make sure that we know where we can go to provide the guidance for teachers, to know up front if they're planning a lesson and they know that this could be a thing, there's guidance for that. If they're planning a lesson 2 weeks from now and they know that it could be controversial, there's guidance in there about how parents can opt out also. However, a lot of times, teachers are fine with that and they know how to handle that. The more difficult times are when things pop up randomly in class. And there's some guidance for those moments also. So I totally agree. We have to be really careful, keep everyone safe, and we believe that the AR of this will help do that.
Mrs. Smith?
Thank you. I never received any information from West Valley, and I did not have the opportunity to review that information. However, I did have many conversations with Mr. Beam regarding this policy over since last April, because it was something that was really important to me. I think it was important to all of us that the AR was particular. So when there's a controversial issue, like another board member mentioned, the Holocaust or slavery or something like that, we, Mr. Beam, correct me if I'm wrong, are always to defer to our curriculum. It is not just up to the teacher to throw out their opinion, and that's what the AR protects. It says that the district's position on the Holocaust or slavery is the position that's in our curriculum. And that's how we're protecting our teachers and our students, because this board approved that curriculum. So we're saying these are the approved things for our students to, the approved point of view. State statute is the one that says that things that the school presents are to be free of partisanship. And when we adopt our curriculum, like you said, it's in our standards for our curriculum, then the teachers rely on the curriculum for the point of view that's being presented. It seemed very straightforward to me, and that is why I'm still supporting this policy as written.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Smith.
May I?
Yes, Mr.
So
Mead?
thank you for that. And I meant to come back to that when you said that and I got distracted. So I totally understand the concern of making sure that we see both sides of an issue. But it does go back to what's in our standards. Did the Holocaust happen? It's in our standards. We teach that. Yes. There are certain things that there are no two sides to, for sure. Holocaust happened. Nazis are bad. Slavery was wrong. Like, those are not options. I think what we're looking at is when we think about about both sides or multiple views of something, there are going to be controversial issues that will have multiple sides of that. But I would say I totally agree. We don't want both sides of everything. There are certain things that are clearly right, wrong, left, right, that type of thing, for sure.
Ms. Barotti has a follow-up, and then we'll go to Mr. Doran and then Ms. Hardy.
To follow up first through the chair for Ms. Smith's comment that she didn't receive the email, it was emailed on February 20th to the whole board. I just double checked. And I appreciate this policy. I think that we need this policy. I just think that the amendments that were provided made it more clear and less up for interpretation. So I'd love to see us work with the educators. What is that? I was saying nothing for me without me. Let's work with the department that has reached out to us to provide us clearer wording and see if we can work together with them to make this policy that is absolutely needed more clear.
Mr. Dorn.
Thank you. Comment and a question on procedure. I listened to the board meeting, last year's board meeting, and the full discussion on this policy when it came to us back then. And there were lots of different requests and issues that board members raised beyond the AR provision. And question, and then I'll have a follow-up comment with it. Were you able to capture those different requests?
I did
wording
not
and stuff?
see those, my notes. My notes were basically, we need to get the AR done, and that's what we did. If there are other ones, I missed them, and that's my fault.
Okay, thank you, and that's fine. There were a lot of things talked about. So then, in terms of the suggestion to amend the policy for first reading with these suggestions, I think they do capture a lot of what was said throughout that conversation. It was about an hour and a half, as well as the conversations in the policy committee in moving this forward for further consideration. So I'm supportive of that. A procedural piece, though, is that for the benefit of the public, that we, perhaps the maker of the motion would read the policy as it would now, so it's clear, because the public hasn't seen, even though we did. The other thing would be to postpone, but if we could read it through and get it done, to deal with it tonight would be good.
Okay, Ms. Hardy.
It was just to speak in favor. I really appreciated reading the AR as an educator myself. I thought it was well done and really outlined things that I wish I'd had when I started out teaching, especially, like you said, the student initiated, how to handle those situations. And speaking to the motion, specifically in there, like paragraph 3, changing just guidance to research-based training, and the idea that we can't just throw guidance at educators without providing them time and training to digest and really learn how to tackle a difficult conversation. I've had those difficult conversations, and sometimes you're very worried in the midst of them, especially when they're ones you didn't expect. So I'm in favor of following the guidance of our Global Studies team at West Valley.
Excuse me. Ms. Matheson has another question.
Go ahead, Ms. Matheson.
Thank you. I'm sorry, that's the dryer if it's too loud. Okay, so my question is, well, what do we do for a grade if a parent declines to allow their child to participate in the controversial topics? Because what the guidelines say is that a parent has the ability to exercise the control over reading, listening, viewing matters extended, but it doesn't tell us, I mean, it's crucial for them to have, first of all, the skills to have a controversy, and the debating skills. So how are we grading them if a parent decides not to allow that?
Right, so typically what we would do, because this happens in other circumstances, not just this, is that what we would do is the teachers would give them an alternative assignment to work on, to take the place of whatever they're missing out on for that moment.
Do you have a follow-up, Ms. Matheson, or is that clear?
Much clearer, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I don't see any further discussion.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, go ahead.
It's a lot, so bear with me. So policy 991, a controversial issue exists for the purpose of this policy when any topic evokes diverse public viewpoints on multiple facets of an issue. The district supports that students should have developmentally appropriate opportunities to discuss and study controversial issues which have economic, political, or social significance in the adopted curriculum. The purpose of the study of the controversial issues is to help students learn how to research, organize, and evaluate bias, discern between facts and opinion, draw informed conclusions, and learn to engage in respectful civil discourse to practice effective citizenship. The district will provide training for the objective study of controversial issues in order that students may have an opportunity to examine such issues in an instructional atmosphere. Staff will follow the requirements of the Code of Ethics of the education profession. The superintendent administration shall support teachers. Let's see. By providing, thank you, by providing, let's see. The superintendent administration. Do you have it? Yeah, could you?
The superintendent and administration shall support teachers by providing training in developing an awareness of controversial issues in the context of curriculum and in developing strategies for managing discussions of controversial topics while promoting civil discourse in our classrooms.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Ms. Richardson, would you call for the vote?
Can we just clarify the vote is on basically the amendment, and then we'll deal with the main motion after that?
Go ahead, Ms. Richardson.
Colonel Suri,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Marati,
Yes.
Mr. Doran,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett,
Yes.
Mrs. Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
No.
Mrs. Hardy,
Yes.
Mrs. Sanderson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Now we're on the amended. The main motion as amended. If you'll call the roll.
Colonel Suri,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Hardy,
Yes.
Ms. Marati,
Yes.
Mr. Dorn,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett,
Yes.
Mrs. Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Sanderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
All right, thank you for your report, Mr. Bean.
Thank you. Just so for some clarification, so I know my next steps, I'm going to rewrite this from, no, yeah, I have it, but as far as what's in the blue part, is that correct from that email? Right. Could you, just one more thing? Could you please just make sure that I'm looking at the right paragraph one, because I felt like what I heard you read and what's in the blue are not the same thing. Okay. So it is what's in
Email
the
it
blue
to
part. Got you. Okay. I will take care of that. We'll come back for this next time.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Mr. Dorn.
Just before we leave the agenda item, I want to thank Mr. Beam and the administration for, in both policy groups going, for all the work on this. I know it's taken some time. And if I might, just for the listening public, that this will come back for second reading, and you'll be able to see a nice, clean, not just the red version, but a clean paper version of it. So,
Thank you.
And Mr. Bean, the thing on the nurses,
I'm sorry?
the thing on the nurses,
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm ready if you are. I have like a partner, but I'm not sure she's here yet. Perfect timing. She's walking in right now. I emailed her. I said, "Get here quick. This thing's going fast."
so coming to the podium now is Shelley Foyt, who is our nurse manager for the Fairbanks Public Health Center. Will provide a presentation on the public health nurses being approved as a group to use presentations and lessons that previously received board approval.
Thanks again, everyone, for your time. So Ms. Foyt is here with me. She's the nurse manager for Fairbanks Public Health Center, just about 5 minutes from here. The current situation, so per state law, any materials or guest speakers about sex education have to be approved by the board. We all know that. We have a list of approved speakers on the website currently. That list looks like this. And it's people can locate it on our website. You can see in the middle there are 6 names that are attached to the Fairbanks Public Health Center. And you can see also what dates those folks were passed by this board. Some of these nurses are no longer with Fairbanks Public Health Center. They have the same issue with turnover that we have in this district, that so many companies and groups have here in Fairbanks and across the nation. They currently have 5 nurses, a nurse practitioner, and a health program a person who could also do presentations but are not on this approved list. Springtime is the time where this comes up, just like as part of the curriculum. This is when things typically come up. So what is beginning to happen is teachers are starting to reach out and to say, hey, we would like to have a speaker for this, because to be honest, this is not a content area, this is not a subject that lots of teachers look forward to having that conversation about. And with the nurses, we have professionals who could do that for us. A little bit about the nurses themselves. Each one has a bachelor's degree, some have master's degrees. They are fully licensed. They have 4 to 8 years of nursing training plus specialty training. They have the same, and they all receive the same intense training on many topics. Once they become part of the Fairbanks Public Health Center, they have to have 6 months of training from the Fairbanks Public Health Center before they're allowed to do their own trainings. Quite often, they go out with a more veteran nurse to learn how to do their presentations several times before they're allowed to do the presentations on their own. They must meet a standard before they're allowed to go out into our schools. The presentations themselves have already been approved by the board. So I'm going to go back a little bit in my slides. So here on the right-hand side in the blue, there's a link there. This is not a live link, but you could go on the website and click on it, and you can see all of the presentations that this board has already approved throughout the years. Those presentations would not change. The content would not change. The only thing that changes are the voices that are saying the content. And all of those voices have the same high standards and expertise that we want them to have. Those presentations were created based on our own standards. It's not something that the nurses did on their own. It's not a state that they were based on our standards. Nothing in those presentations will change except for the data. I want to make that clear that there might be little changes here based on more up-to-date data about whatever is going on. And it is flexible as far as what age group they are talking to. They would certainly have different conversations from 4th and 5th graders than they would with middle school and than they would with high school. So what we're asking here is that rather than have each individual nurse every single year because of so much turnover, instead of having them having to come before the board and go through this process every single year, we're asking that the board give us blanket approval that for any nurses that work for Fairbanks Public Health Center, that they are allowed to go and give these presentations to our students. And we would always have their names on our website. We would keep that up to date. We would just reach out every August to say, where are we with this? She would give us new names. We would put them on there so we all know who they are. But if we had blanket approval, we wouldn't have to go through this every single time because of all turnover. Thank you, and we're ready for questions.
Ms. Marotti and then Ms. Burnett.
I think I'm just confused. So thank you for that presentation, and I fully support doing this, but I'm confused because you just said it. You're asking the board to give blanket approval, but this is under information and reports. So we can't answer that because it's not an action item.
So if I could add just a little bit to this, to take it through the process, it appears as an informational piece now and will come back to the board for an action item later. This is just the report leading up to the decision.
Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Burnett?
Thank you, Mr. Beam. Just a quick question. You said nurses, but then a health program associate. Can you tell me about the health program associate? Are they nursing staff related? Do they have licensing in nursing? What are they?
So the health program associate is a professional position. This position is a bachelor's position. It is not a licensed nurse, but she works very closely, or this particular person works very closely with the nurses, is very involved in reproductive health, works very closely for follow-up to sexually transmitted infections within the health center, and will train along with, has gone out and will do other types of presentations in the community. Thank you.
Mr. Dorn?
Okay. I like this direction, and especially with the turnover, and you answered one of my questions, which was that you'll get that list. The district will be updated, anybody coming in. My first question with it is in terms of the way the statute reads, that we've gotten a legal opinion that, yes, doing a blanket approval for the health center is in keeping with that statute.
We have not taken it to legal, just in reading the statute and in working to compliance. That's where we are right now.
Okay, so that might be something a question I would put for when it comes back for our action. I've got another question, or do you want me to wait?
Excuse me, Mrs. Matheson has a question.
Let's hear from Ms. Matheson first, and then we'll go to Mr. Dorn. Go ahead, Ms. Matheson.
Thank you. My question is, right now, do we need parent consent or parent permission to take any of these courses? And if there were something controversial that would come up with any of these nurses or healthcare professionals, if we're giving blanket permission, how do we safeguard our students if there's any problems with any of the medical professionals?
Couple of questions comments on that. First, there will always be the professional teacher in the room. That will always be the case. This is not a situation where the nurse comes in, starts a presentation, and the teacher leaves and goes and does whatever he or she is going to do. That they need to be in the room all of the time. Whether, as far as whether we have blanket approval or we approve everyone individually, that would be the case. And I think we'd be fine either way. We are trusting these folks, but we also have our own teachers in there. And I believe there was another first question that I don't remember what it was.
Ms. Matheson, could you state your other question?
Yes, I just want to clarify that right now, if we were to have any of these classes in any of our schools, do we have permission from parents? And this is just for the public. I want the public to know. Do we have permission from parents before we teach any of these classes?
Got it. So just a little bit of verbiage so we make sure we're all on the same page. If this is a high school or middle school course, it would be in health, and that's a course. Typically, people don't opt out of health, but when they come to this particular unit or chapter, that could be something that parents would opt out of if they choose to. And if it's a 4th or 5th grade, it wouldn't be a course, but it would be a lesson or two, and they could opt out of that. And parents are given that option, and we make sure that they know up front, a few weeks before this even happens, that they have this opportunity to opt out if they so choose to.
Mrs. Smith?
Thank you. So just to be clear, Mr. Beam, you are carefully making sure that we're following the Parental Bill of Rights that Governor Dunleavy put in place when he was a legislator, to make sure that parents are notified 2 weeks before for any human reproductive education.
Yes, ma'am, we will be on top of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Dorn?
Thank you. Several of these positions of approved individuals, you said, are no longer there. The positions are vacant. Is that right? So we need to.
I'm sorry, not vacant, but they've been replaced with other folks who don't have the approval.
Right. Okay. So timeliness to get this done. And then it's the nurses, but did you also say there's another level that's not a nurse but would be involved potentially?
So potentially, and I think this is worth a conversation, is that there are nurses, there's a nurse practitioner and a health program associate. So nurses generally, and then 2 other positions, and I'll let Shelley talk a little bit more about that.
So I have a nurse practitioner who often gets requests to go in the schools because that is what she does. She's doing, women's health and reproductive health in the health center. And she is not on the list. And she is one that often the teachers call, and they want Corey to come and do this. And it's frustrating because she's not on the list. So yes, definitely. I have at least 5 other new nurses. There's 1 or 2 nurses on the list. One's been retired now for a year. And then we have this health program associate who may or may not, but she is training alongside of the nurses. And I can assure you that none of the nurses or the health program associate would may go with one of the nurses until she was at a point where, we felt comfortable leaving her on her own. So none of the new nurses would go without going with an experienced, nurse who has done this, like myself, many, many times for years in the classroom.
Follow-up?
Yes, and then we'll hear from Miss Olivia Smith.
So the nurse practitioner is a nurse.
The nurse
but the
practitioner
health
is an advanced
program
nurse.
associate. So when this comes back, perhaps to the administration, when this comes back for board action, it would be approval for the more for the organization than for it just being specific to nurses. Is that
Yes,
right?
and so that's something I think that's important to understand too, that is all of the people that we would approve. And when we say, blanket approval, it sounds a little bit like a free pass, and that's not what we're saying at all. We're saying that just like we've heard tonight, the challenges of keeping staff, and if we have to go through this process every time somebody his name is off the list, then we're stymieing our opportunities to teach our curriculum and the lessons that are expected. So all of the people that are on the list would be listed on our website, and they will have gone through the rigorous vetting and training that the Fairbanks Public Health Center does. And it would just allow them flexibility and us flexibility to get quality professionals to deliver the content that we've developed, bringing their expertise into it. So it's kind of a win-win situation for both of us. We're not hamstrung because they have staff that turns over, and they're able to accommodate us because they have new staff that are trained and ready to go. So while it's a blanket approval, it's not anybody. It's only people that have gone through the rigorous training and program that the Public Health Center offers.
Thank you, Ms. Moline. Ms. Smith?
I apologize if this is, this question seems weird. Are all of the people that you're sending in to do the presentations, the nurses and nursing assistants and stuff like that, do they go through the same background checks as like subs and teachers and district staff?
I would say they go through the same background, well, we have the same standards of them as we would any other guest speakers that come into our classroom. They're there for a certain amount of time. They're always within sight of a teacher. But honestly, I don't know the rules as far as background checks on guest speakers, but it would be the same. And my guess is we don't do a background checks. I might be wrong about this, but
Yes.
on every guest speaker that comes through our buildings.
So I'm going to ask Ms. McDaniels from Human Resources to give us the answer to that one.
Okay, there we go. No, so because what Mr. Beam was saying is correct. So if you're within sight and sound of a district employee, you're not required to go through our volunteer or employee background check process. So a guest speaker that comes into the school building would not be required to go through a background check for the school district.
Thank you.
Mrs. Smith, and then Mr. Dorn.
Thank you. Just to be super clear here, we approved the materials, and we're asking for a person to come and only present the materials that a school board approved, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And there's not really they're not giving their own presentation, they're not acting outside of the approved materials. And so in my mind, it doesn't matter who's presenting it as long as they're sticking to the materials and they have the expertise to answer questions that would come up. And so I don't have a problem with this.
Thank you.
Mr. Dorn.
And I'll preface my last question with the fact that I think this is a good idea, and having seen these come before the board before, it's nice to get a broad system in place. My question is just in terms of the other groups in your slide about currently approved guest speakers in this area. There are 3 other groups, and whether you've given some thought or want to give some thought before it comes back to us as to how that they may play in this, whether they would have to come back each and every time they have a new person, or whether we can
Yeah,
expand.
yeah,
it. I don't know.
I totally understand what you're saying. Right now, we have this group, we have a couple of individuals, and no one has come to us to say, hey, we would like to have this group okayed by the board. If someone were to come up and do it, I'd be happy to bring it to the board, and we could do it that way. Or if the board would rather, but this, well, I would say that if we're going to expand this, then we need to bring in every group in here and have this same conversation. I would recommend we just take this as it comes, and we have this in front of us, and let's deal with this right now.
And I would just like to add to that, that as far as a group that is vetted and trained, we know this group, and we would want to make sure any other groups went through the same process. But right now, this is our largest pool of presenters that we have available to us. Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Beam and want to be really clear that right now this is our only group that we have a pool of people from. Everyone else is just that person.
Ms. Hardy?
I just want to say I am definitely in favor of this, and also thank you to Public Health for the work that you do in our community and coming into our schools to provide this service for our students.
Ms. Moretti?
Thanks. I also want to thank Public Health for partnering with our school districts, but I also want to clarify some misinformation that was stated earlier. The Alaska Statute 14.30.361 does state that the board must approve any materials or guest speakers. So both of them are in the language of the law.
Thank you. Seeing nothing new, would you call for the vote, Ms. Richardson? Oh, I'm sorry. That's right, informational. Okay. Next, thank you, Mr. Bean.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shelley, for your presentation. Next, is our, is the chief's comments from Chief School Administrator. Any closing comments?
These are the closing. I get to go first?
Sure.
Oh, I feel honored. Thank you. First of all, I would just like to express my appreciation to the community and those that are involved in the Fairbanks History Day. In my exposure to that event, it's been really fascinating. We've seen it fall away a bit during COVID, but we're hoping to see that come back in a real way. It's a great opportunity. And then finally, I would just like to express my deepest appreciation to the staff here in the district office, the executive directors, and all of those who supported the board and the candidates while they were here during the superintendent search. It took a lot of time and energy, logistical management, while the candidates were here, as well as those who supported the website and social media and working with the contractors. I have always been and continue to be overwhelmed with the quality of leaders that we have in this building, support staff we have in this building, and their willingness to just throw in and do whatever is needed to make something happen. So thank you to everyone that put in the extra hours and time through the process of the superintendent search.
Thank you, Ms. Mullane. And I would start our closing comments with Colonel Surrey.
The only thing I say is I'm fully in favor of that public health option. It sounds awesome for when, like, the superintendent said, win-win for everyone. And having been married to a nurse there couldn't be better people to do it. So thanks.
Thank you, sir. And Colonel Alvarez is not with us, so we will move on to closing comments from the board. Starting with Mrs. Smith.
Thank you. I'd like to remind people that there's a policy committee meeting at 5:30 next Tuesday, February 28th, here in this room. And I'd just also like to thank the staff for all of their help during the superintendent search. It was amazing. And all the students who made delicious food and gave tours, they really showcased the best of our district. Thank you.
Ms. Hardy?
Okay. I would just like to encourage parents. Conferences are going on. They were today and tomorrow, and are actually any adult involved in a child's life, not exclusionary to parents. Get out and visit your schools and talk to the educators involved. I would like to just Miss Maradi, and I don't know how to say it, were able to present this weekend with the Ed Rising Conference that just happened up at UAF. And that is a really interesting program that I've gotten to learn about this year that offers like CTE credits for students wanting to go into education. And as somebody who knew they wanted to be an educator from around like 10 years old, I think that's a really cool opportunity and something I would like to see more Fairbanks students participate in. We had a truly amazing student from Tananall Middle that blew both myself and Miss Maradi away. So even though we don't have a robust program here, that young man was truly outstanding. And then also we have a budget meeting, Mr. Doran and myself, on the 23rd at 5:30, if anybody would like to come and observe that. Thank you.
Mr. Doran?
Thank you. Just mentioning the Budget Committee on Thursday at 5:30. Looking at the weather, we are not going to postpone it because this is a really big time and such. But please do be cognizant, and it is available Zoom, and we can participate in Zoom. So do it safe. But this is a real important time, and I appreciate all the stakeholders on the committee giving their input at this time on it. I also wanted to mention it was nice to see Boy Scout in the audience tonight. I know periodically that's part of your civics participation, and it's really nice every time we see you here. So thank you very much, and the young gentleman that was with you tonight. Okay. Oh, good. All right. Yes. Okay. So we have several members of Boy Scout, boys and girls, that are all members of it. So thank you very much. Nice to see you here.
Ms. Smith?
I wanted to congratulate Mr. Minor on the superintendent position. Congratulations. And also, it was really lovely seeing a lot of you come out to North Pole for the, I'm going to call it town hall. I forget what it's called. But it was really nice seeing all of you. And I know our ProStart program loves catering for it. And I'm sure you guys do too. And then I also wanted to say that the Music in Our Schools Month concert is on February 28th at 7 p.m. at the Lathrop Auditorium. I know that there's a policy committee meeting at that same time, which, dang. I think it's going to be a really, really cool concert. It's got all the high schools, middle schools, some of the elementary schools, and the pieces are really, really beautiful. Some are really funny to do, and some of them have actually brought some of us to tears because of just how gorgeous and meaningful that those songs are. And if you can, I would highly recommend coming and watching it. And then I also wanted to say thank you to all of our library assistants, the ones that came and talked earlier. They did a really good job talking about what they do. And I also just wanted to thank all of the librarians again for doing the subbing that they've been doing. It's been a lot lately. And that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Maradi?
Thank you. My comments are very similar to Ms. Smith's, but I'll start with thanking Ms. Savasco again for her, not only her work with the district, but her work with the Project Hope Kids in our community. It's an unfortunate circumstance that our community is in, and every bit helps. Also, thank you to the educators that not only provided us feedback via email always, but definitely recently related to the work we did tonight, but also for the testimony tonight. We can't do this without you. And again, I'll say it again, nothing for you without you. So please keep engaged, keep coming to us, keep calling us, keep emailing us. We're here, we're listening. Also, thank you, like Ms. Hardy said, thank you to UAF and to Ed Rising Alaska for having Ms. Hardy and I at your conference on over the weekend and on Monday. I really look forward to exploring partnerships with this organization. I think that it'll benefit our students, our schools, our community. It's a great opportunity. We have an audit committee meeting on the Thursday, the 23rd, from 4:30 to 5:30. It's at the Borough Assembly Chambers because this is a joint committee with the borough, and so we all come together at the Assembly Chambers. And then also, lastly, congrats to our new superintendent, Mr. Meinert. I look forward to working with you, and thank you for accepting and thanks.
Ms. Barnett?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who came and testified. As always, thank you to our admin who's always here with bells on. Much appreciate to you guys. Thank you to Mr. Beam and his presentations tonight. Don't forget, conferences do have one more day to go. For parents over at Ann Ween Elementary School, there is a book fair going on in the library, so make sure to check that out. I was in there today. It was pretty cool. Also, we have a curriculum committee meeting going on next Thursday right here in the boardroom at 6 p.m. Fun thing for kids coming up, Hockey Week in Fairbanks is coming, and it's my favorite time ever. March 3rd through 12th, lots of events going on all across town at the Big Dipper Ice Arena. Get the kids out and enjoy some Hockey Week in Fairbanks. Lots of hockey games coming up as well to get to. And then last but not least, I want to thank our board for the very productive and active week that we had, for the very productive and active months that we have had, for doing the work that we need to get done, and for just turning into and being the board that I hope we could become. And I know we can only go further. So thank you guys, all of you. Thank you, Mr. Meinert, and congratulations to you.
Ms. Matheson?
Thank you. First, I wanted to thank the community for contacting us and communicating with us. We really do appreciate hearing from you. I wanted to thank the schools that hosted the events from last week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It was super eventful. The students who were there were amazing, and they really loved their school, and there was a lot of school spirit, which I'm just super tickled to see. So thank you to the students. We are having on March 1st the diversity committee meeting at 6:30 right there at the school district building. I also wanted to remind everyone that Music in Our Schools Month starts on the 7th of March at Lathrop, and then another one on the 9th. I would love to see people support our artists. And a big congratulations to Mr. Meinert.
Thank you. And I have the final comment, and I would just like to say thank you to everybody who really supported the board and the work that we had in front of us. I want to thank Ms. Herbie in between her sickness and emergency ride to the hospital. I want to thank Ms. McDaniels and just let you know that my heart is with you. And I want to thank our board for doing the work and putting in the time. And that 6-hour deliberation was all on my anniversary of 51 years. So I had a lovely time hanging out with you guys, getting the work done. And it was just so awesome to be able to showcase our students. I chose not to try to have it in any other venue but our community partners, and to highlight our students and all that they are achieving and are participating in. That's why we do this work. And I just really appreciate the huge effort from Ms. Herbie, Ms. Josh, and from Ms. Justice over there, because they were on. They were where they needed to be and helping us get everything done. And I know it was a heavy lift, but I truly appreciate Ms. Moline and, of course, Ms. Carm. She hangs out with us and helps us get things done. So I just want to thank you again for all the work that you've provided. And if there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.